Okay, good evening. We'll go ahead and get started here and get you through. So I wanted to touch base with you this week. As you know, you don't have anything due this Sunday. So you kind of have a little week downtime uh, as far as assignments are concerned. But I did want to talk to you and review some information on norm reference assessment. I have received a few emails pertaining to individuals that are having some difficulties, maybe finding some. I do want to remind you earlier in the semester, I did mention that I had created the testing lab video. That is an option for you guys. If you want to use it, it has a recording where I went in and administered the WJ4, the cognitive, because there's more interaction between myself as the examiner and then the student. And so that recording's about between 25 and 30 minutes long. If you choose to use that, which is perfectly fine, please email me and let me know, and I will share the comprehensive report with you. So you can pull data from that. The report will include data collected from both the cognitive and also the achievement test that was administered to that student. I just did not record the achievement because there's a lot of time tests. There's very little interaction between myself and the student. So it wouldn't have benefited you as far as being able to observe the process, the give and take, how that testing process works. So I'm just going to throw that out there as a reminder for those that may need it. It is posted in Blackboard in the SPED 805 resources section. You can go down through there and scroll down and you'll see it just says SPED 805 testing lab video. And had a student volunteer that participated. We created that a couple summers ago. Back when schools were shut down, and also when we started offering 805 in the summer, just to help the students meet that need. So just wanted to throw that out there as a resource. And again, if you decide to use it, just email me and I'll get you the report. So how's everyone, while we're talking about norm reference, everyone progressing on that? Feel good about it? Or are you hitting roadblocks as far as getting accessibility to test to administer? So
yeah, my speech pathologist keeps saying she's going to drop it in my building, and I'm sure she's struggling the same way we all are to get things done during the day. So 2 days in a row she's forgotten. Do you have access to all these things too? Do you have like a bank of PDFs or something
as far as
test? Yeah, the Fristo one.
No, not that. I do have some others, but not that particular one. And then I do have access to some others through Q Global, which is a site that we have for psychometrists or psychologists, especially when we're going to go in and administer. So there is accessibility to different tests and also the scoring systems as well. So, but I don't have access to that particular one.
Does that have speech in it?
I would have to go back and see exactly which ones they are. It's been a while since I've been into that site as far as searching for other assessments, because I mainly use the WJ4, plus I've got the actual kits as well. So I've mainly just primarily used it. So
okay.
Anyone else?
We can use the WJ4, right? For that,
me?
We can use the WJ4, right?
You can. That's correct.
Because I have access to it, and I've given it many years ago. My new school, I don't really give it anymore, but I have access to it. It's easy.
Yeah, no, definitely it is.
That's what I thought. I just want to double check before I do it.
It's a common assessment, Thomas, and that's the one that I actually created the testing video for. So yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Just make sure you can get your hands on, or if you administer it or partner with someone, you can make sure it's scored correctly. And most of them use the Q Global to go in and put their information in. We transfer it, manually enter it, and it'll go through and score it in the system.
Yeah, we get a report that it prints out.
You can do it by hand, but it is it takes a while.
Yeah.
No,
thanks. Yeah, we have a little thing that shoots us a report that I get every time our administrators take it. So
sure, yeah,
right.
No, definitely. Anyone else on norm reference? Any challenges or difficulties? Okay, if not, remember that is not due this Sunday, but the following Sunday. So you have a little bit of time there. But moving forward, I just kind of want to mention, and this is kind of where they start to overlap and start getting on top of each other. So also, I would strongly encourage you to go ahead and start thinking about the CBM. I have received some emails pertaining to that. Just with questions. We mentioned a website last week. I can't remember which one of you did, but it was easycbm.com is a website where you can access multiple CBM assessments. It's very user-friendly website, so I would encourage you to take a peek at that and see if there's anything on there that you might be able to use to assist you. But remember, we want to try to get 5 to 6 data points. And so if you look ahead, knowing where we're at now and when the CBM is due, it'd be wise to go ahead with your student and start administering those. That way they're not just stacked on top of each other every other day within a short period of time. So you might want to start thinking about that and going ahead and collecting that information. Because that will be upon you before you know what's going on. Another thing I want to remind you of, because here we are, we're about midpoint of this 8-week course. Just a courtesy reminder again of the end of the semester or the end of the 8 weeks. You have the portfolio assignment with the mock IEP video. And one thing I did mention to you, like the first night, I'm gonna go back and cover it, is to encourage you along the way, as soon as you submitted like the informal assessment report to me, to go ahead and download the lesson plan template and go ahead and just create your lesson plan, save it so you'll have it, versus waiting until the end and trying to go back and do it. Because everything's going to move quickly. Here we are, worry midway through, and it will help save some frustration and maybe some stress if you go ahead and just take care of it now versus waiting to the end, because the portfolio assignment, the components for that are the 3 lesson plans, and you'll upload into that portfolio template, and then the IEP or the mock IEP video. Okay, that's really the bulk of that assignment, other than creating your little introduction paragraph in your ending paragraph to wrap up the portfolio. Okay, so again, I would encourage you to go ahead and do that. I'm going to share my screen quickly with you because I want to go back and make sure you guys know exactly where the tab is to create that portfolio. When you're in Blackboard, just to save you some confusion as well, you're going to see 2 tabs pertaining to portfolio. The first one you're going to see is more to the top part of this left-hand column that says comp portfolio. It's not that tab. That is for something completely different. It has nothing to do with this class. Okay. You're going to scroll on down to where it says create portfolios here. And I'm kind of circling it with my cursor here. You can click on it. It's going to show you portfolios homepage, and you're going to go right into that. You'll just click it, and it's going to give you the option for creating your portfolio here. This little button that says create portfolio, you will do that, and then you'll be able to set it up right there. It's pretty simple. It's just a basic simplified portfolio. It's not anything that's big, long, and extensive. Literally, you're going to create the introduction paragraph, upload your 3 lesson plans, and then upload your IEP video, your mock video, and then create the conclusion. But I just wanted to show you quickly where that was at, just more of a refresher and a reminder. That way, if you decide to go ahead and create that and set it up and get ready and just go ahead and start uploading your lesson plans in there, that'll just give you another leg up in preparing for the end of the semester. Okay, is everyone good with that as far as me showing you where it's at and feel comfortable? Okay. All right. Next thing, kind of quickly, just wanted to share a week 5 slideshow quickly with you. And this is kind of going over some information again with norm reference test, just clarifying some information about more or less what they entail, what they're made up of. And again, this is in Blackboard, so I just want to hit some of the high points quickly with you this evening before I turn you loose and we finish up. So norm reference, basically, how are they constructed? Okay, so there's an item pool that's created as far as bank of questions, and then they're arranged in sequence order from easy to more difficult. So when we go in and we start administering, Thomas, you mentioned that you're somewhat familiar with the WJ4. And so depending on the student's age that you are assessing, it will direct you, and I'm using this example with the WJ4. Depending on their age, it's going to direct you to start on a certain question within that list. Okay, so if they're a little bit older student and that subtest in number sequencing has 50 items, if that student is a 5th grader, it may direct you to start them off on item number 18. Okay, so you wouldn't start them at the very beginning. Okay, when you go to score it, items 1 through 17 are going to be counted correct automatically on that when you go to do your scoring. So again, depending on their age, it's going to direct you to start them in a certain question based on difficulty for that student's age. There are going to be some that are field tested in the development process when they create these assessments. There are ongoing revisions that are made, just like the name, the Woodcock-Johnson 4th edition. Okay, years ago, for a long time, it was the 3rd edition, and it was revised multiple times before they came up, modified it, came out with the 4th edition. So those are constantly reviewed to check validity and reliability. Again, norm reference test, what is it? Mentioned this before. We've talked a little bit about it. It's the norm group. It's a sample, a group of diverse students based on linguistic and disabilities and cultural factors. The norm sets the average performance for that assessment, and that's how it's normed. Students who are later assessed should be similar in background, age, or grade. Okay, interpolating data. So when we go in and test developers will obtain an average expected score for each month for that student's age. So the scores will also be divided by the age group at each month based on their chronological age. And it will report that in the comprehensive report when you run your data through, and it scores it. Another interesting thing is it will predict based on the scores that you obtain for checking their or measuring their intellectual abilities. And then once that is scored, it's going to predict what that student should make on all the subtests, and it's going to compare it to that. And so that's part of the scoring process as well. Steps in administration of the tests. You hope that you are familiar with that student before testing begins, although unfortunately, a lot of times that examiner may be contracted to come in where they haven't been around that student much. Okay, they're coming in basically cold turkey, first time they're seeing their student. Hopefully they'll engage in some conversation, become familiar with that student, explain why the test is being administered, and hopefully it will help calm that student. Although have had to stop before in administering those to give the student a break due to visibly being anxious, nervous, to try to put them at ease, that could have an impact on their score. It could affect the validity and reliability of it. Okay, so it's important that we try to establish some kind of a relationship with them. Somewhat, it's going to be different than what you're doing now because you're using students that you're familiar with. Calculating chronological age. This is something that's a little bit different. I want to point out to you, it can be somewhat confusing. when I went through a psychometry program to become an examiner, I mentioned a while ago to Thomas, you could go through and score a lot of this by hand manually, and it's very labor intensive and it takes quite a while, but that's the way we had to do it to make sure that we truly understood all the different assessments and how to go in and calculate. One thing we do in calculating chronological age on the comprehensive report, it always lists the chronological age, and there's a process for how that comes out. So it shows here, there's a little chart that shows how we go in and calculate that. So you actually would list your test date along the top column. So it might be in 2003 was the test date. It was the 4th month and the 2nd day. Then
Mr. Posey, I don't think you're sharing your screen. I can still only see.
Okay, let me go back. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was sitting there talking away, assuming you guys could see it. Can you guys see it now? Okay, sorry about that. You should have just been doing timeout, stop. Okay, so let me go back real quick. You're going to see this small table here. The top row, we put the date of the test. So we start with the year, the month, and the day, going from the left to the right. So this example, 2003, 4th month, 2nd day. Then we're going to go back and list their birth date by year, month, and date. We're going to calculate starting from the left, moving to the right. So we look here and we're going to subtract. So we look over on the month. Your 4, your top number is smaller than 10, right? So we're going to have to do something there. Same way, the 8th day that the student was born is smaller than your top number. So we're working in months. It takes 12 months for a year, right? And we base everything on 30-day months. Okay. So in order to carry over, we're going to subtract a year. So when we carry it over, that year on the months is 12. Everyone see what we did here? Okay. Then we also know we're going to have to carry this over again. So we're going to carry over 1 month. Therefore, this will become 11. Okay. And over here, this will come 30. And we're going to add 30 plus 2. So 30 days plus the 2, subtract 8. It's 24 days. Here we subtracted a month to get 30. So that's that adds up there. So we take 11 and 4, that's 15, minus 10 equals 5. Here we subtracted years, so that's 2002 minus 1994. So the student's chronological age that we calculated is 8 years, 5 months, 24 days, the day of the test. Now, if you ever decide to go and get credentials to do testing and all that, the software will do it for you. But I just kind of wanted to show you how that's calculated and how you go in and do it by hand. Somewhat confusing at first, but after you do it a few times, it kind of makes sense. Next item is just calculating raw score. It is what it is. You take the first score obtained during the test, or which is a raw score. So you taking the number of items the student scores correctly. So the raw score is, if they got 40 out of 50 correct, the raw score is 40. Okay, you guys do this a lot in just regular everyday classroom. Basals and ceilings. I mentioned this a while ago. When I use the example referring to Thomas on starting off a certain age, and it directs you in the directions as an examiner, depending on their age, to start off on a certain number. Okay, that's going to be considered their basal. And on certain subtests, you're going to be directed to go, let the student go and complete questions until they miss so many consecutive in a row. Some of them might be 5 in a row, some might be 4, some might be 6 that they get incorrect in a row. If they hit that, whether it's 4, 5, or 6, that is considered their ceiling. Okay, it's above, the difficulty level is above their ability. And so you have hit the ceiling, and that's where you stop the test. It's not timed. They continue working until they get X number of problems wrong. So the basal is where you're going to start them at according to their age and according to where that the directives tell you to start, and then they will work until they hit their ceiling, which will be so many problems incorrect. Does everyone understand that? Does it make sense to you? Okay. So basals and ceilings, and when you administer a lot of these norm reference tests, certain subtests will direct you to determine basal and ceiling. You determine the basal by their age, where to start. The ceiling will be after they get a certain number of incorrect answers. Okay. So again, here it is. Certain tests may direct you to start on an item. If the student is, say, 6th grade, 4th month, it will tell you to start with item number 10. That's an example of the basal. Ceilings are, again, once they get X number of items in a row incorrect, that's where you establish your ceiling. Okay. Protocols, those are basically the forms that I use for scoring. That's all it is. It's a score booklet. It's all it is. It's going to be multiple pages long, and each page correlates with a subtest. And that's where I literally monitor them. And as they're giving me feedback, and I go through and score it. Okay. So when we're going through to score them to get their raw score, a correct answer, you list 1. 1 is considered a correct answer. 0 is considered an incorrect answer on the protocols. So a little bit different. We don't just go through there and put check marks, meaning they missed it. You go in there and list a 1 or a 0. Then you may add up the ones. Okay. One thing is getting the best results. And again, this is just some basic information. You're going to see classroom observations in determining which test to administer. So if I come in, the younger the student, I'm going to give them more frequent breaks. I'm going to monitor their just their demeanor to determine if they're starting to get worn out. If they are, I'm going to stop the test, split it up, and come back the next day and give it again. I get a more reliable and valid result. You see on there, it says do not overtest the student. Okay. So if it's a WJ4, there's about 2.5, maybe upward of 3 hours of material. I'm not going to go in there and have a kid set that's a 1st, 2nd, or 3rd grader for that amount of time in one setting. Okay. It's not recommended that you do that, and you're not going to get a good result. Here it talks a little bit about reducing bias, test bias from being the administrator of the test. Okay. And types of scores. This will be one of the last things I just want to hit this evening really quick. So we have multiple scores on there on the reporting. You have T scores, Z score, STAY-9, scale, percentile rank, age equivalent, grade equivalent. All of these will be included in your comprehensive report. Okay. Some of the things that we really look at that I like to focus in on is looking at scaled scores, percentile rank, and then also age equivalent, grade equivalent. That's where it really gives you a good quick snapshot of how far above level the student may be for certain skills and how far below they are. Z score and T scores, those are scores that are converted and has a little bit different standard deviation and a mean or an average score. So a T score, the average is 50 and the standard deviation is 10. And then the Z score basically is taken where that student stands or where their ranking is when you look at standard deviation units. So a lot of times I don't really hit so much on those 2 items when I'm doing a MEGS meeting and explain those scores as compared to STAY-9, scale, percentile rank, age equivalent, grade equivalency. So just kind of a broad overview, usually a little bit more in depth as far as some of the terminology and language that's used, especially on the North reference side. And you may hear some of those terms used when you actually go sit in a MEGS meeting, when that examiner comes in to go over those results. So has anybody had the opportunity to do that? Sit in a MEGS meeting? So the MEGS meeting basically, and you will eventually, but that's essentially the meeting that's held after all the tests are completed. Psychometrist or school psychologist will come in and review the comprehensive report with the entire team sitting at the table. And so when they start going over and explaining the information within the report, you will hear a lot of those terms: grade equivalency, age equivalency, T-score, Z-score, Stanine scores, percentile rank. All those terms will be used. So again, this is a great resource for you to go back and look at, especially once you do have the opportunity to sit in one of those MEGS meetings. Those are oftentimes somewhat lengthy. Those also can be pretty emotional at times, pending the outcome of the test results, especially if that student is severely low. Those are oftentimes difficult conversations to have with the parents. So just something to kind of look forward to as you progress through the program, complete your credentialing, and get out and serve in that role. Okay. Anyone have any questions? Kind of cover that information quickly, but just kind of wanted to share that with you.
Do those meetings happen as often in high schools as the younger grades?
A lot of times the meetings will happen when they're older if they have decided to do the reevaluation. You know, they're required to consider that, look at it every 3 years. Depending on the parents, the student, where they're at, how they progressed, they may choose not to do the reval when it comes up time. That's not uncommon. Okay. High school, probably don't see it as much.
No, like we do address the reevals and stuff. I guess we just do fewer details in depth
Oh, for
regarding the test
yeah, well, in high school,
information.
probably on the reeval, they probably aren't as in depth compared to if it's an initial
Mhm.
and considering placement. Okay, so on the reevals, they may go back and see where the student was before when they come in to do the IEP meeting and go over the reeval. They may go back and compare the comprehensive report from the previous time they were tested into the results now, and compare and see how much that student's gained from the last time they were evaluated. So it may not be as in-depth compared to a younger student who's going through the initial to see if they qualify for services. Usually those are pretty in-depth, those meetings. And more often they're going to occur in the lower elementary, lower mid grades. Usually they've been tested and identified before they even get out of elementary school. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, again, remember, no assignments that are due this week, so you get a little bit of a break. Okay. I would again encourage you to go ahead and maybe start on that lesson plan for your informal, and then perhaps maybe go in and start setting up that portfolio, and that way your template's ready and you're good to go, and you won't have as much at the end. Okay.
I just had one clarifying question.
Yeah.
On the syllabus, it said something about adding in your informal assessments, but we don't need those in the portfolio. We just
No,
need
you do
informal
not.
assessment
No.
lesson plan.
The only thing you need to upload is the lesson plan. You do not
Okay.
have to go also. Sometimes there's been questions before. The report that you submitted to me that I've already scored, you do not have to upload that. The only thing you need to upload is the lesson plan for each test in the mock IEP video.
Okay, because I've already started my portfolio and have the first lesson plan completed. I just need to add it in there.
That's all you need to do.
But
Yep.
I just want to make sure about
Yeah, you don't have to upload anything else with it or copies of the informal assessments. I've already seen all that. Okay. Any other questions on that portfolio or anything moving forward for that?
So where is that template for the lesson plan?
The lesson plan template will be in the 805 resources.
Trying to find it and I'm not seeing it.
There are 2 of them and we can use either one that we wish, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Were you able to see them, Tanya?
I'm not, hang on, I'm trying to see on the, I got a little Chromebook, that's what I'm trying to see it on.
Okay. Let me get back over there. real
Okay.
quick. So I'm going into the course shell right now.
Okay.
So
So. Oh, down. I did.
hey, so there's a tab on the side on the left-hand column that says SPED 805 resources.
I found that, yeah, it's so small. Okay, so the lesson plan template, and then okay, so the first one that I just clicked on, doesn't look like the lesson plan we just did.
That's an older version of it. The new version that
Okay,
I was telling you that I would encourage you to use
the new one.
is the newer one because it directly correlates with the lesson plan format that you're going to see when you do the PPAT.
Right.
Okay.
Right, so it is
It'll be your
the next one down, right?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Now that looks just like what we just did
Yes.
in 804. I
Yes,
think,
in 804.
right?
Yep.
Okay, so the lesson plan is to be what we just did with the informal, right?
Right. So basically what you're doing, just to clarify it, after you've given the informal, you're going to look, you've identified some of the students' weaknesses. And so you're going to go in and create a lesson designed to address the weak areas identified in the informal assessment.
Just to address the weakness
Mhm.
that I found in that.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. You're going to design a lesson that will address one of the skills that you identified as being a weak area for that student. So each one of these reports, guys, if you look at that rubric, it's going to ask you to identify strengths and weaknesses based on the data that you collected. When you're doing your informal assessment report or your normed reference or the CBM.
But this lesson plan is only for just one of those.
For
Is that
one,
correct?
that's right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for one of
Alright.
them. Yep.
Okay.
So if that student had 3 areas that you found he or she to be weak in, pick one of those 3 and build you a lesson in that lesson plan over it to address one of those.
Okay.
Okay. So basically this step is trying to get you in the habit of looking for information, data you've collected, picking out the weak area, and then being able to take that and go and develop a lesson for it. Okay.
And this is going to be geared to a whole class or just that one student?
That one student.
That one student.
Yeah, because it's individualized. You're
Okay.
taking that student and we're gearing it for that individual.
Okay, the one student that I tested already. So, okay.
That's correct.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else have a question before we go? Okay. If not, if you have anything come up between now and then, please email and I'll get to you. And if not, I'll plan on seeing you guys next week. Okay. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you.